Hello everyone, have a nice day. Thank you Mark and Janice for this incredible story. Enjoy listening.
Thanksgiving for the impossible. A mother's love is a feeling that allows ordinary people to do the impossible. The 9 months of my pregnancy were easy, but the birth itself was difficult, and our son was taken out with forceps. I was thrilled to be a mother. My husband Mark and I hoped that the birth would be natural, with candles lit and nice, soft music. Then we would wash the baby in warm water and I would start breastfeeding him. But life made some adjustments, and it didn't turn out the way we had planned. The baby came out face down. In those years, the mother-to-be had to hope that the baby in her womb would roll over on its own. I remember being wired to a massive machines, like a television set in the countryside to antennas, to get better reception. As soon as problems were discovered, my husband was kicked out of the delivery room, the lights were turned on, the music was turned off, and a tub of warm water for washing the baby was pushed to the corner out of harm's way. The doctor gave me a shot to my spine, and then our son was born. When the baby was handed to me, I noticed the cuts on his forehead. I thought at the time that he was doing great and had survived the forceps. 2 months went by. Mark and I were happy and were taking care of the baby. Thanksgiving was approaching and we were already looking forward to spending it with our son. But one day while I was breastfeeding my baby, I got a bad headache. After a few hours, the pain was so bad that I couldn't move. By the time Mark came home from work, I had a high fever. My husband offered to take me to the hospital, our friends promised to watch the baby, and I agreed. I kissed my son and told him I would be right back. On the way to the hospital, every bump gave me the worst pain in my back. I told the doctor that I was breastfeeding and asked him to prescribe me something for the pain and to let me go home soon. The doctor didn't answer anything, and when he finished his examination he went out to talk to my husband. I was almost delirious because of my fever. Individual words came from the next room: contagious, life-threatening, consultation with specialists. Mark's tone became concerned. Then the doctor came back and said he couldn't let me go home because I had spinal meningitis and needed to be isolated. What meningitis? I asked again. How could I have contracted it? I don't know how you got it, the doctor replied. Now I can't even say if it's bacterial or viral meningitis. You need to take antibiotics. Despite the pain, I did not agree to be separated from my son. Who was going to take care of the baby and his father? I mumbled. But my temperature continued to rise, and it was useless to persuade the doctor. I was put in a separate room, and all visitors had to wear special suits and masks. Friends called and tried to support me, but the painkillers made me forget who I was talking to. Every time the medication wore off, I asked for a breast pump to pump milk for my son. Mark had to work, so our relatives took care of the baby. The baby was fed from a bottle, which he didn't like, and he cried a lot. I had several spinal cord punctures. It's a very painful procedure, but I had to endure it to see if the treatment was successful. Then the doctors realized I had viral meningitis, stopped the antibiotic treatment, and said my body had to fight the disease on its own. When Thanksgiving came, my whole family gathered at my husband's parents' house. They cut the turkey, and I was in the hospital with meningitis at the time. The disease severely affected the left hemisphere of my brain. In addition, the muscles in my right leg began to atrophy. I often prayed for recovery and for God to send me hope. I so wanted to hold my baby in my arms again. I looked up and looked through the window at the door of my room. My husband was standing in the corridor with his sister and my mother-in-law holding my 2-month-old son. Tears came to my eyes. My baby was looking at me through the glass between us, and our eyes met. He was smiling. I felt a surge of new energy, and I felt hope. I smiled back at him. After this incident I had the confidence that I would return home soon. On the 11th day I had another spinal tap. My right leg had dried out, becoming almost twice as thin, but the doctor said that my condition had improved 70% and I could be discharged from the hospital. Mark drove me home. I tried to feed my son, but the milk was gone. I was very upset, and yet the fact that my son didn't get meningitis while I was nursing him was a miracle. During one of my follow-up visits to the doctor, a nurse told me that her husband had been paralyzed after the same illness I had had. I felt grateful to God for saving me from such a fate. My doctor thought I was very lucky, but he predicted that I would have a slight limp for life. I replied, "I have a little boy, and I will run with him. I will definitely recover." Mark helped me do special exercises. I could not yet get out of the shower on my own without risking a fall, and I could only hold the baby sitting up. In my head was spinning the song, "Oh, everything will be easier. Oh, everything will be better." It took me a year and a half to fully recover. Tests showed that the nerves in my hip and shin were badly damaged, but my leg was as thick as it had been before the disease. The muscles were gradually getting stronger. On my son's birthday, when he was 2 years old, I didn't just walk without a limp, I ran with him. After a while I taught aerobics and won a dance competition. I will never forget that Thanksgiving. It was all set for me to die or be crippled, but the Lord looked at me through the eyes of my child and I knew I could take it. Now only those closest to me remember what an uphill battle I had to endure that distant November day. Only words of gratitude remain for what seemed almost impossible at the time.